Hello and welcome to VectorPro version 8.1. 8.1 must be paired with firmware version 3.1.7. If you're upgrading your test stand, please take all precautions prior to upgrading both the firmware and the software. The ELS firmware may also be upgraded at the same time. If you're in any doubt, please contact Mezzin support for assistance. So what's new in version 8.1? We've got operation limits, operation digital jump, formula within formula, event log details, pass-fail in exports, and user template 11 enhancement. So let's have a look at the new features. The first one is the new limit operation. So if we go in and edit the test, we can have a look at, under operations, a new operation category called limit. Within this, there are 4 operations that are new. The first one here is stop the test if an operation reaches a load limit, stop the test if an operation reaches a displacement limit, stop the test if an operation reaches the time limit, or if a digital input is enabled. So let's have a look at how we use these. So operations, I've got a simple test here of 0, relative 100 millimeters at 50 millimeters a minute, then home. So we're using a displacement. So if we try and put a displacement in, it won't work because we're already using a displacement as a limit. So we can put in a load. So this one I'll drop in a load limit. And you can see here I can edit this and put in a limit on the load of 50 newtons. So now my test will try and drive to 100 millimeters at 50 millimeters, but if it sees an increase in force over 50 newtons, it will end the test. I'll drop that out. Look at another example. So this time I'm driving to 500 newtons at 50 millimeters. I can't put a load in because it's already a load limit. So now I can put in a displacement limit. I can choose my displacement. My displacement type can be a target, can be relative or from absolute. So I'll put my displacement in as 15 millimeters. And now the test will stop when it reaches 500 newtons or the 15 millimeters. You can also look at the other commands. So here I'm going to put in a time. So time can be used on any operation because it's a time limit, not a distance or a force. So here I'm putting in a time limit of 45 seconds. So if the test is trying to get to 500 newtons, exceeds 45 seconds, the test will stop. I can also put in, before this, a digital input stop. So I can configure this. Click on the edit. I can choose my digital input line, possible of 1 to 12. So choose my digital input line. Now when I'm running the test, if I get a change in digital input line 2, that will also stop the test. These operations can be used at any point in the timeline, and they can be used multiple times as well. So I've got a simple drive to 25 mil and then on to 500 newtons. So I could put a limit on there on the target. I can do it as a relative limit on here of 10 mil for the operation. I could also put, if I wanted to, a load limit at the beginning, load at 50 newtons. I could put a time limit on the test as well. A time limit in here. So we've got lots of conditions which can occur during the test where limits might be useful to stop the test and move it on to the end. Those are the limits. We'll now look at a live example. So I've set a load limit of 25 newtons and go to a distance of 25 mil at 200 mil a minute. So if we run this test, I just let the system run and it should run to 25 millimeters. Operates as expected. Come back out. Now we're going to run the test again, but this time I'm going to apply a force to the load cell. So we'll start running to our 25 millimeters, but I've got a limit in, and there's my force limit. So it has stopped the test before it went to its 25 millimeters. Next one we'll look at is the new digital jump. So if we edit the test, set up a test in operations. So we've got multiple target forces, so 500 newtons, 1000 newtons, 1500 newtons with pauses in, and then finally a pull to break. So you have a new one here called condition. So jumps to an operation if a digital input is enabled. We can drop this in, beginning of the test, and we can choose which digital input we would like to look at. We have a choice of up to 12. And then we choose our operation. So I'm going to choose the break operation and enable that. So now I will continue to do my test, but if digital input 1 changes at any time during that test, we will move on to operation number 6, which is the pull to break. Jumps to an operation if a digital input is enabled. That's the new feature. Next, we'll look at an enhancement to the event log. The event log records all the information on the system. Now we've added an additional column at the end, and you can see what actually was done with the event. You can see here, test designer saved, overrided a version. Here I was putting in the operations. So you'll be able to look and see exactly what the operation was, what you did on the system. Gives you a bit more detail on traceability and what was happening on the system in the event log. Next we can have a look at formula in formula. We're going to have a look at one of the results in here. It's a tearing or peeling test. We've got our average force between our limits. Go back and have a look at the test by editing. We're seeing in our attribute section, I have one called sample width, 15 mil. So I'll go to our results as our average force. So I'll put in our sample width in our attributes. So I have a number to work with. I'll drop in a formula. This is the same as before. We can take our average force, we can divide it by our sample width, we can create this new result, we'll call it average strength, and we'll give it some units of newtons per millimeter. Now, if I then add in another formula, you'll notice now I have a third column, which is my average strength. So now I've created a formula and I can use that with other formula as well. So each time you create a formula, it becomes available to be used again. So this time I'll divide that by 10 and give it a title. I'll call it average divided by 10. And we'll give it some units, newtons per millimeter. We come back out and we save our changes. We go back in and have a look at our result. And there we've got our 2, our new one, average divided by 10. So each time you go in and you play around with the formula, you add a new formula in, you'll see that the previous 2 I've created are now available to be used. And that's formula within formula. Next feature we've got available in here is sample dimensions within the formula. So we go to results now and look at a formula. See, it's as standard. Now if we go to sample, we drag the specimen into sample and then go back to our formula. You'll see now we have this icon here. We can drag this in to our formula area. We can do operations on it. So I'm going to divide the average force. We click on it, we've got the width, the thickness, the area, the gauge length, and the grip separation. So these are all available now from the specimen tab. So we can create a new formula using our standard specimen dimensions. Again, we can give it a name and units. If we exit out, we can then go back in and look at our results. We can see we've got a new strength result now, which is our average force divided by our specimen width. What we'll do next, we'll have a look at a little enhancement we've done. So I'm going to open up the two tests that I've got in varying values, and I've got a tick and a cross because I've put a verify on this. So I've got one that passed and one that failed. And we've got our exports here, our Excel, email. So if I do a text export, it's exported the CSV file to a location. Now I can go and have a look and see I've got my location. There's my exports. If I look at the Excel file that's exported, you'll now see that we've added the tick and the cross as a pass and fail on the end of that, so you can see visually on the exports which one passed and which one failed. Next is a small enhancement to template number 11. So we've got template 11 selected here. If I come back out and open up a couple of tests, for security, what we've done now is we've added the user in to template 11. So anyone who logs on the system will be annotated on here with their user. That's a small enhancement. And those are the features of VectorPro 8.1. Thank you for watching.